Always good to talk with the voice of the Auburn Tigers, Andy Burcham. Does football, basketball, baseball on the Auburn Radio Network, and he's usually good to give us some of his time. We've got with Andy on Media Days, and now with a week and a couple of days before Auburn opens the football season, we will talk with Andy once again. Andy, how are you today?
I'm doing well. It's kind of a rainy day here in Auburn, but we get ready for our first Tiger Talk tonight. It's our first actual broadcast on the Auburn Sports Network and gear up for the September 3rd opener against the Mercer Bears.
That's right.
All right.
Well, we had our first coaches show yesterday with Sam Pittman, and it's a lovely day across the natural state where optimism runs high for this football program. Tell me the temperature around the Auburn football program, because it wasn't that long ago. A lot of us thought Bryan Harsin might not make it through the month of February as the head coach, but he came through. He says the program is stronger after the investigation, and they've had spring ball and most of preseason camp leading up to this. So what is the overall feeling about Auburn heading into the second year under Bryan Harsin?
I think it's a more galvanized squad this year than it was a year ago, and probably needs to be after the turmoil of the winter, especially January and February with the program. And I think they used spring ball to start that process of rebuilding the cohesion on this team. And one thing you notice with this ball club, and you've got three captains that were named just earlier this week, and all three of these guys could be playing elsewhere or even in the NFL. And Owen Papos certainly could be playing elsewhere, an outstanding linebacker for the Tigers. Derek Hall, an edge rusher for Auburn, he could have declared for the NFL had he chosen. And John Samuel Schenker could either be playing elsewhere or moving on with his life. He's married. He set Auburn's record for tight end catches a year ago. And all three of these guys decided to come back in the midst of everything that was going on in the winter. And I think that's the theme of this team. The guys that are here are committed to their teammates, committed to this university, and just as important, committed to this coaching staff right now.
Okay. So what do you think is the overarching strength of Auburn? If I were to guess, I guess I would say the running game, because I see an experienced offensive line, a couple of the really good running backs in Jarquez and in Tank. But in your eyes, what do you see as the number one strength of this football team heading into 2022?
I'll give you one on each side of the ball. And offensively, it has to be the running game right now, because we still don't know who's going to be named the starting quarterback, although we believe that it will be TJ Finley, and that will surprise some, as a matter of fact, because I think a lot of folks had given the job to Zach Calzada in the offseason, and yet I think it's going to be TJ that will make that start against Mercer in a week and a couple of days. But the running game is the most proven part of this team right now, with Tank Bigsby, who is healthy, and Jarquez Hunter, who is also healthy. And neither guy at the end of last season were what you would consider a healthy tailback for Auburn. And then you add a true freshman, Damari Alston, who's a little bit of a scat back, but they really like him there. And Auburn is deep in the tailback room and is talented in the tailback room. And then you go to the other side of the ball, and without question, Auburn's strength is up front, with the aforementioned Derek Hall, who was named one of the three team captains. You have an Eko Leota, who transferred in from Northwestern a year ago and will come off the other edge, and really came on for Auburn a year ago. He had 10 tackles for loss and 7 sacks, and really improved as the season went on, and has continued to improve in the offseason. And then Auburn added some bulk in the middle. At nose tackle, transfer from Oregon, Jason Jones, who's 6'8", 328. And then a really intriguing guy out of Independence Community College. He was ranked by some as the number one JUCO prospect in the country, Jeffrey Emba, who is 6'6", 313. And his nickname on the team is Thanos. And he hails from France. He's really an intriguing guy. I haven't gotten to know him yet, but he will give Auburn some heft behind Marcus Harris at defensive tackle. And then you've got Colby Wooden at one defensive end, and he comes off 61 tackles and 5 sacks a year ago. Auburn up front defensively has, I think, terrific talent, but also has some depth to go behind those guys. So I would say running game offensively and the defensive line on the other side of the football.
Well, hopefully Thanos forgets all of the Infinity Stones before Arkansas and Auburn match up against each other. Hey, so you mentioned the quarterbacks, and this is such a fascinating battle for this position. 3 transfers coming in, and I mean Zach Calzada is the one who beat Alabama last year at Texas A&M.
Right.
Robbie Ashford's giving up baseball in order to focus on trying to play quarterback in the SEC, and then there's
really good baseball.
And
yeah,
that's
he's a good baseball player.
Now, he's not going to play baseball for you guys, too, is he?
No, not that I've heard.
Okay, good. I'll celebrate that. But then there's T.J. Finley, who it sounds like you think he might have the edge here. I
do. I think he has the edge, and it could come today, perhaps. Bryan Harsin mentions it on Tiger Talk tonight, but I think sometime this weekend, at the latest. I mean, because game prep has begun, I think they'll name T.J. Finley. But the guy that's made the biggest move since spring ball is Robbie Ashford, the aforementioned baseball player who played 2 years of baseball at Oregon, but never played football. He's from Hoover, Alabama, the Birmingham area, and is the best dual threat quarterback that Auburn has on the roster right now. And he's really made up the most ground of anyone. And I think we will see him on the field even if Finley is named the starter. I think Ashford's going to be on the field in some packages just because of his running ability. He throws it well, but he gives Auburn a different aspect when he's on the field as far as RPOs, getting out of the pocket, getting on the edge, and that type of thing. So Ashford's the one that's made the biggest move in the offseason, but I think a lot of folks are still surprised, are as surprised that T.J. Finley is going to be that number 1 quarterback for Auburn.
Mm-hmm. And with having a running back like Tank Bigsby, how much pressure is going to be on, T.J. Finley, whoever, is playing quarterback for Auburn this season to put up numbers and to perform? I mean, are they just going to be more of a game manager style type of players? Are they expected to not only put up numbers to really, really affect outcomes of games?
Listen, we know where the 2 schools that we broadcast for play in this country, right? The SEC West.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can have a quarterback that is just a game manager and just try to run the football only in this league and specifically in this division right now. Teams are too good. They'll stack the box on you. I mean, you're facing some of the very best defenses, if not the best defenses in the country, week in and week out when you're facing an SEC team. So, yeah, I think there's a little bit of pressure on T.J. Finley, not only to handle the offense well, but excel in the offense. Now, listen, I don't think he has to go out and average 400 yards a game passing. I don't think that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any Auburn quarterback is going to be asked to do that, especially when you have a running game. And that is the philosophy that this run game, the pro style is the way that Bryan Harsin runs his offense. It's the way he did it at Boise. And you're going to see T.J. Finley, Auburn's quarterback, whomever it is, under center much more this year than it was last year. And last year is the first time Auburn had anybody under center other than a short yardage situation since before Cam Newton. So things have changed a little bit, but T.J. Finley has to be, I think, more than just a game manager for Auburn at quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Now, for Bryan Harsin, after the very public and really damaging type of offseason with boosters and rumors and everything else that has happened around the Auburn program outside of X's and O's and spring practice and now fall camp, what really is the vibe around Auburn as far as fans? And have you heard of a kind of a number of wins out there that to really calm things down, Bryan Harsin has to succeed? Because most of us do believe, around that cover the SEC, that Harsin, even in year 2, is truly coaching for his life right now.
Well, it's interesting, and I don't know what that number is because I think it depends on who you ask.
Mm-hmm.
And does that person have the power right now to pull the trigger on a head football coach? The average fan certainly doesn't, and they probably have a number in mind. Now, listen, I think the number right now for Auburn is that first 5 games. and you look at Auburn's schedule, and it's unusual because it's 5 straight games at home. It's 5 straight winnable games at home for Auburn, I believe. And what kind of confidence, what kind of momentum do you have coming out of the first 5 weeks of the season? Because after that, the schedule gets dramatically tougher. After the LSU game, and that's nothing against LSU or Missouri, but both of those teams come to Jordan-Hare Stadium in the first 5 weeks of the season. And then Auburn goes on the road. Auburn plays, I don't know, does anyone else play both Alabama and Georgia on the road this year? The 2 teams that played for the national championship a year ago. Auburn does. That's Auburn's first road game. Is
Arkansas got to do that last year, Andy. It didn't go so well.
Okay, exactly. Will it go well for anyone, for goodness sakes?
Yeah.
So Auburn has that schedule coming up, and after 5 in a row at home, it goes to Georgia and Ole Miss in back-to-back weeks before its off week. And then you've got the Hogs here on the 19th of October. One night, by the way, Phil, you'll love this. One night after Auburn plays Alabama in a fall baseball game. Nice. They play on Friday night before the Arkansas football game here. So that's going to be a fun weekend.
Yeah, that'll be
And
great.
then you go to Mississippi State, which was the most damaging loss that Auburn had a year ago here. You get A&M and Western Kentucky at home, and then you close with the Iron Bowl. The last 6 games of the schedule are brutal for this Auburn team. So momentum and confidence coming out of the first 5, I think, is the key.
You just mentioned the number 6. That's the winning streak Auburn has over Arkansas. 4 blowouts and 2 tight ones. Even last year was tight, even though the final score doesn't necessarily show that. Auburn played such a great second half. But Arkansas ended losing streaks last year against A&M, against Mizzou, against LSU. So the going thought is they're coming to try to end a losing streak against Auburn.
That'll be a fascinating game. I mean, for Auburn, that game a year ago in Fayetteville, I think, was the peak of the season. Things started going downhill after that game, and it was a good finish for Auburn. Auburn finished that game well. And I think it felt pretty darn good coming out of Fayetteville a year ago, as it should have. That was a good Arkansas ball club, certainly an improving Arkansas ball club.
Andy, I got to ask you a question about last year's game at Penn State, and not the game in and of itself, but the atmosphere. And, I'm a Pennsylvania native. I never went to a Penn State game. They have over 110,000 there. If I remember, it was a night game and a whiteout and everything. You get them at home this year. So, I mean, you've been in all the stadiums here in this league, and you know what the experience is like, and I know Auburn is a crazy atmosphere as well. How did the Penn State atmosphere measure up to what we think the SEC is about, in all of these cities? I
think folks in Pennsylvania wanted us to say that that's the greatest atmosphere that we've ever been in.
They put on more of a show, huh?
Yeah, and it was good. It's a great atmosphere. But listen, you see that just about every place you go in the SEC.
Yep.
Now, it may not be the 100,000, 110,000 seat stadium in Happy Valley, but, I mean, you're still going to A&M and Tennessee and Alabama with stadiums over 100,000. You still have great atmospheres everywhere you go in this league. So what I've said is it was an SEC-like atmosphere. And now Penn State gets to come and see what it's like to be at Auburn in week 3 on national TV at 2:30 on CBS. So I can't wait to see the response of the Penn State folks when they come to town. Because this place gets rocking now, let me tell you.
Well, I'm excited to see that, too, when Arkansas gets there on October the 29th. Because I've been there for basketball, I've been there for baseball, and I just can't imagine what it's going to be like inside that stadium and that Eagles flying around. Andy,
It'll
appreciate
be fun.
you. Yeah, it certainly will. And we'll maybe we can do it again that week and do a little preview of it.
BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports, contests, and events with first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to join today and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV 50. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV 50. Bet online, where the game starts.